Greetings and welcome back. It's your host, Gabe Morales. As promised, I've been moving from the West Coast across the United States and hope to cover more gangs in your areas. I also hope to do more coverage on outlaw motorcycle gangs and cover some more of the Aryan groups. Today, we're going to cover Texas street gangs. The Texas Penal Code describes a criminal street gang as being three or more persons having a common identifying sign or symbol or an identifiable leadership who continuously or regularly associates in the commission of criminal activities. This term is very similar to that used in California and other states, including Washington State, where I was a part of the governor's gang study group. And we recommended the politicians in Olympia adopt a very similar term. Gangs in Texas have been influenced by California, Chicago, as well as being homegrown. There are some Chicago gangs in Texas, such as the Latin Kings, who have a presence in several parts of the state. Gangster disciples are also active in the state, such as in the Northwood Mandarin area of Houston. I did a whole series on them and other Chicago gangs in case you're interested. Houston, also known as H-Town or Houston, is broken up into areas called wards, like they are in Chicago. When Hispanic Houston street gang members go to jail or prison, they may ride under the H-Town Tango Blast. The tangos movement is spread all over Texas and made up of local homeboys from various cities and towns who didn't like the traditional Texas prison gangs bossing them around in custody.
Houston, the father of the Tango Blast. Overwhelmingly Hispanic and all male, Houston formed inside of Texas state prisons during the early 1990s. Originally say members, it was an offshoot or cousin of the Texas Syndicate, but the homeboys soon grew tired of being taken advantage of by the established gang to do much of its dirty work. So in the same way that MS-13 formed in Los Angeles to protect its people from other predatory groups, so Houston was created to shield inmates from other prison gangs in Texas. In fact, many older members claim the word Tango as an acronym standing for Together Against Negative Gang Organizations.
I cover this movement in more detail in my Texas Part 3 video, and it is covered even more in my book, Carnelismo de Chaos, Chicano Gangs in History of the Southwest U.S., co-authored by my good friend Steve Lucero. Houston gangs may also use the Houston Astral symbol as an identifier. The Hoover Crips/criminals also use the Astral symbol in their official colors, orange and blue. The Hoovers come out of LA and are located all over the United States, including my hometown of Seattle. But one must be careful not to peg somebody as being a gang member of a certain gang solely due to just one identifier. Many of you have heard of the transnational gang Mara Salvatrucha, which originally was started in Los Angeles, made up of Salvadorian gang members who were harassed by the predominantly Mexican-American gang members. Many of them got deported back, and Mara Salvatrucha is now a transnational criminal organization that is spread all over Central America as well as many parts of the United States. Houston PD Chief Art Acevedo says there are about 20,000 gang members in Houston, and approximately 400 of those belong to MS. He also estimated that there's an additional 400 in other parts of the Gulf Coast region. While their number may be small compared to other Texas gangs, they are known to be very violent and may use machetes in their attacks. 18th Street is another gang that started in LA, but many of their members were deported to Central America and Mexico and is also considered to be a transnational gang. 18th Street has a presence in some areas of the state, such as when officers with the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, arrested a Salvadorian man in Arlington, Texas, who was wanted for capital murder. It stated that Jonathan Alexander Gonzalez Rosales was in the U.S. illegally and was an active member of the 18th Street gang. Houston also has the Southwest Cholos, who I understand were started in 1988 and in their infancy were called Los Mañosos and later became the Dark Angels before they became Southwest Cholos. Southwest Cholos often will use the number 13, not because they're affiliated with Sureños out of California, but because the 13th letter of the alphabet, M, for Mexican. They also adopted the 5-point crown from Chicago gangs and often will put pitchfork down, as folks are considered to be their enemies. They are also enemies of the Crips. Understand that Southwest Cholos were influenced by 18th Street, who often used black as their color. And at the time, Southwest Cholos had Mexican Chicanos as well as Central Americans. until some of the Southwest Cholos broke off to join MS. In 2017, more than a dozen alleged members and associates of the Southwest Cholos were charged in federal court on a variety of charges, including sex trafficking, drug trafficking, selling firearms, human smuggling, and identity theft. According to the indictment, the defendants operated several brothels in apartments throughout Houston as well as down in Mexico. In this sex trafficking scheme, illegals were allegedly promised they could work in a restaurant where they could pay off their smuggling debts. After arriving in Houston, however, the victims were told they actually had to work as prostitutes in brothels controlled by the Southwest Cholos. The Southwest Cholos are said to be strongest until about the year 2000 after the RICO case, but they are still around. While gang culture has died in Houston, I understand the Southwest Cholos are still active in some places like Barrio Gulfton, which also has some MS members. La Primera also operated in the southwest part of Houston, an area called Sharpstown, and they often beefed with Southwest Cholos. La Primera's official colors were white. Also, South Brown Sureños 13, whose colors were brown or blue. Understand their barrio was in the area of the 8600 block of South Gessner. There's also the Somos Pocos Pero Locos. Understand that they and La Primera were allies back in the early 90s, but then had some conflicts. Somos Pocos Pero Locos also use white as their colors, and they're said to have a clique in Katy, Texas. Denver Harbor is a Hispanic area I've been told is controlled by the Little Red Gang to the east side. I don't believe they are Norteños, however, they may be Bloods. Maybe some of you guys can let me know what's the deal on the Little Red Gang. Federal Road, Fleming, is an area on the east side that I've been told has a lot of 5-deuce Hoovers. And in the Clinton Park area, there are also some Hoovers as well as Pleasantville Bloods. Understand that Cranbrook is a Rolling 60s Crips area and that they wear yellow and blue. I hear that Stoodwood is a Rolling 40s neighborhood Crips area, but on nearby 33rd, they are called Crips Cartel Trey Trey. Some state that the Bloods were the first Cali-based gang in Houston's South Park area, and that the 102 neighborhood Pyrus were the first Bloods in Houston, and that they controlled some apartments in the Wesley Square area. Yes, I know that in Inglewood, California, the 102 Raymond Avenue Crips are very close to the Tongan Crip gang, but we are talking about Houston. Totally different area, totally different thing. I've been told that 5'9" bounty hunters in Pyrus operate around the West Fuqua and Foundrin area, and that they copied the LA bounty hunters who come out of Nickerson Gardens in Watts. Many state that initially had no LA ties, but later some bona fide bounty hunters from Watts came to their hood day, which is May 9th, and that there have been connections ever since, and that they were stamped by the LA bounty hunters. Understand that Corporate Drive also has some bounty hunters, as well as Treetop Pyrus, who also have a presence in Greenspoint, Audubon Park, Trinity Gardens, Kelly Court, Spider Lane, Alameda Plaza, and Cooper Tree are also said to have a lot of Bloods and Pyrus. According to investigators, the 4th Street Bloods originated in the mid-1990s in the Bayshore area, northeastern Galveston County. The 4th Street Bloods got their name from their hood, which was the 4400 block of 4th Street in Backcliff, Texas. The year 2009, the Galveston County Sheriff's Office Special Crimes Unit began targeting the gang in an effort to disrupt and dismantle their leadership. The summer of 2012, multiple 4th Street Bloods were sentenced to federal prison for conspiracy with intent to distribute crack cocaine. San Antonio has experienced many gangs over the years, and they often use the San Antonio Spurs logo. Assistant Professor of Criminal Justice at New Mexico State University, Dr. Mike Tapia, wrote a book called The Barrio Gangs of San Antonio, 1915 to 2015. Tapia was born and raised in El Paso, Texas, but decided to interview multiple veteranos, old-time gangsters from San Antonio, and document the evolution of gangs in the city. As I explained in my Texas MA video, many gangsters from San Antonio joined the Mexicaneme when they went to prison during the 1980s and 90s. After a bloody war with the Texas Syndicate and after the TS splintered into different factions, the Texas MA were the dominant prison gang in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice until several RICO cases were brought against them and many were sent to the feds, and until the growth of the Tangos. In fact, the Tango homeboy cliques practically have taken over in TDC TCJ, as many youngsters just do not like having to follow the rules of the older Texas Famas. Organized crime existed for decades in San Antonio, but the seeds of widespread gang activity among young people were sown in the late 1980s. We had this proliferation of Bloods and Crips coming in from other places, said Mario Salas, a community activist who served as a councilman during the 1990s. They brought with them that gang culture and sort of infiltrated the criminal element. The number of juveniles arrested in San Antonio for violent crimes tripled between 1987 to 1994, according to the Texas Law Enforcement Management and Administration Statistics Program. The number of youth arrested for unlawfully carrying firearms doubled over the same time period. Many attributed this rise in drive-by shootings to the increasing ease of accessing high-powered weapons and to the 1988 movie Colors. Increasing power and influence of Mexican drug cartels also contributed to the surge in violence. Dallas gang violence has gone up and down over the years and presently has a whole new age of gangster cliques and crews who are very big into technology. For instance, the Free Band's Birds gang is active in South Dallas. I understand that they loosely fall under the Crips umbrella, and some of them rap drill style, which is a rap music movement that is big in Chicago and has spread to other cities. Understand that FBG have beefed in the past with Bloods.
2019 saw 205 murders in the city of Dallas. In 2020, the homicide skyrocketed to 254 in that year. Then 222 murders in 2021. 214 in 2022, and a 15% rise in homicides in 2024. A total of 246 killings, 32 more than the year prior. Early 2023 saw a rise in Dallas drill where specific names and events were being mentioned and mocked on tracks. Specific murders were being talked about.
Pleasant Grove was built during the 1940s and 50s, and originally it was a predominantly white community until blacks moved in, with several violent gangs being active there. There's the Greedy Grove, or Pleasant Grove Vatos, which is a predominantly Mexican community since the year 2000. Dallas gangs often use the 5-pointed star of the Cowboys, unless they are a 6-point gang like the Gangster Disciples. Dallas gangs may also use their area code, such as 214, as an identifier. Fort Worth, also called Foros or Foritos by Chicano gangs, are often influenced by Dallas gangs. A lot of my relatives live in Foros. Understand that the Diamond Hill Northside area of Fort Worth was first for Trey Gangster Crips, and that they were one of the first Crips on the south side of Fort Worth. Understand that Long Beach Crips are also active in the city. The Outlaws were once the largest Hispanic street gang in Austin, and they had ties to the Texas Syndicate. Outlaws members were not only recruited to sell drugs and enforce the rules of the TS on the street, but they were also involved in major crimes in the greater Austin area committed on behalf of their gang. Once put in jail or prison, the TS would often recruit the younger outlaws. In the 1980s through 90s, Austin, Texas experienced an influx of gang activity with the arrival of Crips and Blood sets from LA, like many cities in Texas did. These sets established themselves in various neighborhoods, primarily focusing on drug trafficking. But as a result, territorial disputes arose and violence ensued. South Texas has many gangs in small to medium-sized towns. In the Texas Gang series, I mentioned the Tri-City Bombers, who formed in the early 1980s in the Pharr, San Juan, and Alamo areas of South Texas. I was actually in that area for about a week during the late 1970s, and I don't remember a lot of gangs. However, I remember there were drug cartels active in the area. The Tri-City Bombers are different from the Texas Chicano Brotherhood prison gang, which also operates primarily in the Rio Grande Valley, and who were born after a split with the Bombers in 1994. The Tri-City Bombers, originally called the Tri-City Poppers, started out as a clique of young breakdancers that later became a street gang in the 1990s after the popularity of breakdancing declined. The Bombitas, as they're also known, originated in the Lopez Colonia, north of San Juan, Texas. The crew was based within the tri-border area of Pharr, San Juan, and Alamo, and members were often involved in petty crimes. But when they went to prison, many became associated with the Texas Syndicate. For Paroled members of the Tri-City Bombers adopted a highly organized structure like the Texas Syndicate and set up a similar chain of command. In 2017, a grand jury returned a 27-count indictment against 25 Tri-City Bombers members for such things as drug distribution, money laundering, robbery, and discharge of firearms, resulting in death. It said that Tri-City Bombers members and associates coordinated the transportation and sale of cocaine, marijuana, methamphetamine, and heroin from South Texas to areas as far away as Atlanta, Georgia, Fort Wayne, Indiana, and St. Louis, Missouri, as well as other cities nationwide. As I stated, these gangs can be found in big cities as well as smaller towns. For instance, the Nasty Boys gang rides heavy in Fabens, Texas, located just southeast of El Paso, Texas, and they are very much down for their barrio. El Paso, Texas, also known as Chuco Town, due to the fact that it had a lot of Pachucos in town during the 1930s to 40s, had a big effect on the use of Calo or Spanglish. You can see my video on Calo for more on that cultural effect and how it has influenced the present-day dialect of many Chicanos. When people talk about El Paso, Texas, also known as EPT, many times the word respect comes up. They say it is a good place to live, just as long as you show respect. Show disrespect, and that might be a different matter and outcome. Still, EPT does not have a lot of violence, especially compared to Juarez, located just across the border. However, there is a lot of drug usage and drug trafficking in town. The Army base Fort Bliss brought in a lot of gang members from all over the country. El Paso has many gang areas, some of them very old, such as the Segundo Barrio, which a lot of Texas Syndicate joined back in the 1980s, until the Barrio Aztecas came along, and then a lot of EPT gang members joined them. In El Paso, the Barrio Aztecas are not as strong as they once were because of multiple RICO cases. People got tired of both gangs and just claimed EPT tangos. There are smaller street gangs, such as the 6th Street Gang, who may fly any color and are also down for their barrio. There is also Barrio Pico Norte, 19th Street, not to be confused with 18th Street, even though both often sport black colors. The gang was said to be an offshoot of Los Guaritos from Juarez, Mexico, and they grew into one of the most notorious gangs in El Paso, Texas, with some 50 to 60 active members. There are some Sureños in Texas, as well as a few Norteños. So that is going to be it for this episode. I hope you found it to be educational. It is not my intention to ever glorify any of these gangs. I tried to include most of the bigger gangs, but no, I left out a lot of the smaller sets in the Lone Star State. So go ahead and put those in the comments section if you know of them, as well as any feedback on this video. Once again, it's okay to disagree with me, just make sure that is respectful, or it'll quickly be deleted and you'll be banned from this channel. Many people have asked about white prison gangs like the Aryan Brotherhood of Texas and Aryan Circle, which I will get into during a different episode. Thanks to all my law enforcement and corrections brothers and sisters who help keep our streets and institutions safe, and for schooling me on Las Pandillas de Tejas. Thanks for watching and for your continued support. As I was finishing this video, I just noticed that we passed the 15,000 subscriber mark. Man, that is really cool. Gracias. For now, this is Gabe Morales signing off. Gangsters, cops, and politicians.